If you haven't been affected by addiction, you know someone who has. Find hope next on The Difference. God's word says that when we are weak, He is strong, and whom the Son sets free is free indeed. No matter the addiction that you're facing, no matter the bondage that you feel like you may be in, I assure you, God has the power to break those chains and make all things new. On today's show, we're going to be talking with Rob Koke, pastor of Shoreline Church, and his daughter Danielle, as they share their family's journey from addiction to recovery and even into a life of victory. We're here with co-authors, father and daughter, Rob Koke and his daughter, Danielle Koke-Germain. Danielle, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Pastor Rob.
Glad to be
Pastor
here.
Rob, it's a pleasure.
Pastor Matt.
Now, first and foremost, your book, Prodigal Daughter. For people who've been in church, the prodigal son's a familiar story.
Yeah.
And so immediately they would begin to draw their own conclusions about what's inside the book. The thing that I think is very telling is how transparent you are. Yeah. As pastors, as church leaders. You know, one of the things that maybe society, culture, just our own humanity says is, you know, keep all of the difficulties in your pastor and personal life separate, you know. And yet with this title, with even the book cover, you've got a pill for the O. Yeah. You know, you're coming right out front and saying, here's the reality of our situation. What prompted you to be so transparent in the writing of this book?
To be totally honest, Danielle had a big part to play in how that unfolded. I tend to be a little bit more private, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
And I would...
It's our nature.
I would probably have wanted to shape things and craft you know, the story and minimize its impact and just kind of create an illusion perhaps of strength and victory in my own life and all of that. But Danielle is a part of a different generation maybe even, but also her personality and her makeup. She's just real and honest and forthright, and she wanted to tell the story. It was really her inspiration. And so part of it came out of a sermon series after we had kind of processed through this. We did want to help as many people as we possibly could. Yeah. And so we were doing a series of messages on recovery, and our creative team, and we pastor a large church, just like you guys. I mean, it's been an amazing privilege and journey to be a part of that. But our creative team wanted to kind of add this dynamic, perhaps, of an addict telling her story. And Danielle volunteered. She said, I want to be that voice. And so we had this kind of black screen where you couldn't tell who it was, but just a voice.
And the pastor and dad and you's like, well, hang on, you know, we need to talk through this.
Big time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But and then at the end of the series, we revealed that person to be our daughter. And there were some who would recognize her voice that were in the inner circle, but you know, we have thousands of people who attend, and so many people didn't know and didn't make that connection until the very end. But it was really super powerful what happened. You know, people don't relate to success as much as they relate to suffering and to heartache and pain. And so being as open as we were about it gave permission for everybody in our church to deal with the issues that they have. And all of us have issues.
And you know, not only is the reality of the situation and the outcome of it something that is a message of encouragement, but it's really the biblical mandate of they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimonies. Yeah. You know, the blood of Jesus Christ is our victory. Yeah. The word of our testimony is what he rescued us from.
Yes.
And you know, I think that there's a generation that they're a little worn out with people who were almost perfect getting just a little more perfect whenever they met Jesus.
Right.
You know, instead of people who say, look, humanity and life and the circumstances that I faced were more than I could take. And Jesus helped me overcome those things in ways that I never could. Now somebody goes, I can relate to that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so Danielle, when you stepped forward to tell this story, it was something, you know, obviously it was in you to do, but that had to take a lot of courage in and of your own self.
Yeah, I think for me, like I resolved in my spirit pretty early on in my recovery that I was gonna be vulnerable about it. And I just felt just kind of like this, how can I not?
How can you not?
Just yeah, I just felt like it was my right to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and it was part of the giving back process, you know, that she had been helped and now she wanted to help.
Yeah, help. Danielle, you started drinking, doing the drugs. What age? I'm looking at you now. I'm like, you're in your 20s. You're beautiful. You just got married 6 months ago. So tell us a little bit, those that are listening, when this all started. And
Yeah. So for me, this whole journey kind of started, to take back the context of the story. When I was 14, we lost my brother Caleb in a car accident, and that was like the most traumatic thing still to this day that I've been through. And so as a 14-year-old, I didn't quite have the emotional tools to process that kind of a loss. And so
I don't know that you get them at 48 or 58 or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, tragedy struck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that I didn't want to feel what I was feeling. And so I pinpoint that moment to the first moment of knowing that I wanted to escape my emotions. But when I was younger, I didn't quite have the access to like harder stuff that I would find later on in life. So my first drug of choice was attention from boys. And then as I got older, I discovered drugs and alcohol. And when I was in high school, I wasn't quite, free. So I only had access to it on the weekends when I could arrange my schedule to
pastor's
lie.
house. I get it.
yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
But then when I went to college, I had all the freedom, and freedom mixed with what I didn't know back then was addiction is a deadly recipe. So it just kind of skyrocketed when I went to college, and it started off fun, parties, life of the party, but then it just kind of snowballed into this addiction.
We had no idea.
Yeah,
to be totally honest, honestly, I mean, she was perhaps the most delightful addict you'd ever meet in your life.
And
there was never.
Those are the worst.
In the context of indicators, when you say you had no idea, there are probably people who are listening go, how do you not have an idea? And the reality of it is some people are very adept at hiding it.
Yes.
And, as you mentioned, you didn't realize it was addiction at the time.
I just thought I was a normal kid.
How many young people today are in a struggle with addiction that they're not even aware that that's the situation they're facing?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that sometimes people are just really good at hiding it and they keep it undercover, and then other times everybody's oblivious to it, but it's all around them.
Well, some people who get addicted to drugs also have emotional, outbursts and all kinds of signs and ways that you can discern that something is wrong. In Danielle's case, she was a master manipulator and a very good liar, and she was very skilled at painting a picture that she knew we wanted to, see about her life.
She knew when to perform in front of you.
Yeah,
she knew when to
she was
perform
great
in all categories.
And she was at a Christian school too when she, kind of found the freedom and access to more drugs and alcohol than we ever thought would be available on a campus like that. And so we discovered her situation when we opened up her bank statement. We had put some money in her account for incidental expenses when she was at school, and we had never looked even for a couple of months. We just put them in a pile. We never even cared.
Relying on that.
Yes, relying on.
And then so one time it came, and we just opened it up, and we see all of these debit, kind of charges to alcoholic establishments, and we're just thinking, oh my, she's not even 21. She doesn't even have the age.
Somebody has stolen her card.
Has happened here.
Yeah.
And so we call her and we say, listen, Danielle, we see all kinds of, charges here. Is there anything you need, to tell us? And well, there was silence for a moment, and then
I was like, how much do they really know? What lie am I going to tell? But at that point, I was really desperate for change. I knew that my life looked different than the people that was around me. But I wasn't sure how much of it was addiction or was I just partying too hard, but I knew that my life looked different, and I felt like I needed to kind of come home and process that. So when he called, it was a relief.
So the prodigal is at the end of her rope. When we come,
when
we come back, we're going to find out how much farther Danielle can go. The good news is, if you have a prodigal in your life, there's always a path home, and God's grace can get you there. You're going to find out more about that when you come back to The Difference.
We live in challenging times. Our world is currently in a state of fear and uncertainty. Yet this Easter season, Hagee Ministries asks you to give praise for the resurrection of Jesus. Christ conquered death, and through his sacrifice gave you the power to do the same. His tender mercies have the power to heal and restore. This month, Hagee Ministries will use your Easter gift to help those impacted most by these historic circumstances. Donate any amount today, and we'll send you our Power to Heal book and a vial of anointing oil. For gifts of $150 or more, we will also include a beautiful portrait of our Savior. This Easter, let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Send your gift today. Call the number on your screen or go to jhm.org/lives.
Join us in celebrating Pastor John Hagee's 80th birthday. Born on April 12th in 1940, Pastor Hagee is a fifth-generation pastor and the 47th descendant of his family to preach the gospel full-time. Even on his 80th birthday, Pastor remains faithfully committed to continue to share the gospel all over the world. A man of vision, Pastor continues to take action, building a legacy and a future for generations to come. Let's celebrate together, and in honor of Pastor Hagee's lifelong commitment, donate to Vision 2020.
Welcome back. Our guests are Rob and Danielle Koke from Austin, Texas. And just before we left the last segment, you have confronted Danielle on some concerns.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out how you're going to
How did they figure it
how you're
out?
going to slip this knot.
Yeah.
So how did that play out?
Well, so, my first tendency in that moment was, because I'm so used to lying at this point, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of this. But then in that moment, that long pause, I was like, what do I need right now? And I don't know how I had that moment of clarity, but I knew that my life looked different. I was kind of miserable. If I lied, I would just continue to be miserable. And so I opted to come home and kind of figure out what was going on with me.
And that was a real shock, to be honest. When she said, I think I need to come home, we weren't even prepared for that.
Yeah.
We were looking at this
How?
statement, and we were thinking to ourselves, okay, she's got an issue, but is this college experimentation? Is this just, kind of, maybe a little bit more than
You
what?
bought it for your friends, right?
Yeah, or something.
something else.
Tell me something that I can manage. But
Yeah.
You want to believe.
So when she said, I've got to come home, then we knew her life was out of control because she didn't want to come home. She just knew that she needed
to come home.
And so we met with some counselors in Austin, and we didn't know if she needed to go to rehab. We didn't know if she needed, some counseling, what was the right protocol. And we settled in on something called 90 meetings in 90 days. That's what one of our family counselors had really encouraged us to do. And it would be Danielle going to a meeting every single day for 90 straight days. It would be Alcoholics Anonymous, Celebrate Recovery, church, Bible studies. Just go to a meeting every single day for the next 90 days. And that's the course that we set out on.
Yeah, and so I started, giving it an honest shot. I was like, okay, if there's truth here, I want to figure it out. And I was doing it for a little while. And then somewhere along
like
the
a
journey.
good New Year's resolution,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
were all
I'm
in
gonna
for a
start
week.
it.
Got this.
Yes.
New Danielle, new me. So I gave it an honest shot, and somewhere along like 30 days, I started to, get the doubts creeping in, and I was like, I don't know. I've never gotten a DWI. I don't know. I've never
do I
been
have a
homeless.
problem?
Yeah. Like just listening to other people's stories.
I'm
and-
way better than
better.
they
Yeah,
are.
yeah. I'm
They've got
too
the
young.
issues, not me.
Yeah, too young to have a
Man,
problem.
you're messed up.
So somewhere along that journey, I just started thinking, okay, well, maybe alcohol was the problem. I'll try Adderall again. I'll try weed again. Those aren't that big of a deal. And so that just snowballed back into the same thing. I had a few relapses, big relapses at home. And one of the lowest points of those relapses, and I got in a really bad car accident. And it was actually like the lowest point for me was realizing that that accident was on the same road that my brother passed away on. And so it was like, okay, this is it. I have a problem. And so I was gung-ho recovery. At that point, I wanted to go back to college still because I didn't want this to be like my whole life. And so, I go to my dad. I'm pitching him this whole plan. I got, I'm going to get a sponsor. Don't give me my car. Don't give me money every month. This whole thing laid out. I really wanted to go back.
And we weren't feeling confident enough to make these kind of decisions on our own. So we were talking with our, sphere of influence and counselors to kind of help and guide in that decision-making process. And we didn't feel ultimately like this was, hey, we've got this solid answer, but the alternative was to keep her at home and try to shelter her life completely, to send her back to school with removing all of the ways that she was able to have access in the past. And, we have a youth pastor that was now starting a church up in that area. And so we knew that she had great accountability and relationships.
There were connections.
Yeah, there were connections there. So we with prayer and a little bit of trepidation, I guess, we sent her off to school.
Which is such an honest statement. And
that's what
I
think
applaud
people
you for
listening.
saying, we reached out to our inner circle, and people, the Bible says in the multitude of counsel is wisdom found.
Yeah.
And for you to say, hey, I'm too close to this.
Right.
I'm dad. There's a part of me that wants to totally protect my daughter, but then there's also a realistic side of me that recognizes I can't keep her locked in a tower forever.
Right.
Yeah.
She's going to have to become a functional adult if she's going to live a victorious life where she's overcome and owned her past. She's going to have to face her future. So, stuck in that, you're reaching out to people. And I think that there's a challenge that sometimes when people get in these difficult situations, especially in a spiritual aspect, isolation becomes a very bad thing.
Yes.
I'm the only one who's ever dealt with this. I can't tell anybody what I'm going through. And there's probably people all around you who can say, okay, I may not have the exact same details, but here's how I overcame my difficult day. And that had to provide a lot of strength and support in your prayer and trepidation, which is another very transparent statement. I don't know that any human being, outside of just those few moments where faith kicks in every door of fear, moves forward without both. You can't tell me that David ran forward with the slingshot in his hand, looking at the giant going, I hope this works.
It was a little bit
I'm
of
going to
that
let her
there.
go, but please,
God, help me.
make sure I don't miss.
So Danielle went back to school, and this is where the story, I think, really is so helpful for people, because if you recognize the force of addiction in someone's life, what happened next was really pretty telling.
Yeah, and it's important to note that when I went back to college, I was gung-ho recovery. I told all of my friends, this was out there.
Yeah, that's my past.
And I went, the first day that I got back, I went to get coffee with a friend, and we were just catching up, normal things, normal life. How was your summer? And she said something that is, it was harmful, but she didn't mean it as harmful. She was just like, I'm happy for you, I'm proud of you, but it's gonna kind of suck that we won't get to drink together this year. And I was like, that shift in my mind, going from gung-ho recovery to, well, maybe one drink won't hurt.
Yeah.
And that night I drank, and back, complete snowball.
And what the issue with addiction, as you probably can guess, is that you don't start again anew and fresh. You actually start at your worst moment and go worse and worse and worse. And now, a couple of months into it, we're connecting with her every single day, texting, asking the hard questions. Again, brilliant liar, painting a picture. But I'm going on a missions trip to Uganda, and we're on the phone and we're talking, and I could just tell something wasn't right. And I'm in Uganda, and I email her and I say, Danielle, you know that I love you. We just had this conversation about your school and your studies and your future and your dreams. Everything sounded great, but I'm just going to ask you again, tell me if it's really going great. I won't judge you. I promise you I won't be angry. I'll do everything in my power to get you the help that you need. If I'm wrong, just count it as a dad who's trying his best to love his daughter. But if I'm right, just know that we'll give you everything you need to get the help that you need.
Oh, that's good.
And her response back was,
I'm ready, take me home.
Yeah. And that's when the healing began. That was literally the last drink she ever had was on that night. And we brought her home, and we brought her into recovery, and we put her into rehab, which is a story, all to itself. But I think she found the strength, her relationship with God, everything in that process of healing. And we're so thrilled to have her with us now.
Wow,
Well, I want to give you, again, accolades for the courage to tell your story. Yeah. And not only tell your story, but tell it in a way that relates to people who struggle. You've shared why this situation occurred. You've shared how you maneuvered through it, because I think there's probably some parents who are watching that going, I might need to go check my kids' receipts. You know?
I need discernment more.
And then as a father to say, look, I'm going to transparently love you. I want to trust you. I'm worried about this. Are you there? Are you not there? You know, sometimes parents, I'm infringing on their privacy. You know, God gave them to you for a reason. Yeah. You know, He expects you to be the private detective of your child's life. Yes. You know, I was always aware. I have a PI watching over me. His name's Dad.
And I think that's one of the magical parts about the book, to be totally honest. It's written chapter by chapter from my perspective, Danielle's perspective. She's funny, witty, raw, real. We share it like it is. There's no sugarcoating. There's no cliches and just easy solutions. It's all in there, but it's a story of hope and victory for anybody who's going through this kind of challenge. And really, it's a love story at the end of the day.
If you are in a moment where you're searching for hope, I assure you that our God is a God of all hope. If you're a parent who's searching for answers to questions that you might be afraid to ask, I want you to get this book in your hands, because you're going to find the encouragement you need. And I want you to know, for every prodigal out there, there is a loving Father with waiting, open arms, wanting you home again. Thank you for watching The Difference.
See the Bible come to life by standing in the very places where the stories of the Holy Scriptures unfolded. Join Pastors John and Matt Hagee on this extraordinary tour of the Holy Land. Visit historical sites such as the Mount of Beatitudes, where Jesus delivered the Sermon on the Mount. Sail on the beautiful Sea of Galilee, where Jesus calmed the storm and fed the multitude. Feel the presence of God as you walk the streets of Jerusalem and pray at the Western Wall and float upon the waters of the Dead Sea. All of this and much more as you embark on this life-changing journey to explore, reflect, and renew your faith in the Holy Land. For more information, go to jhm.org or call the number on the screen. A lasting legacy is all about the actions you take during your life. Your actions will affect how people remember you for generations to come. As a legacy partner, your monthly gift supports humanitarian efforts in Israel, the Sanctuary of Hope, and our global broadcast outreach. The Bible states that when you bless Israel, God blesses you. God can use us in amazing ways to enrich the lives of God's chosen people. Partner with us today. Call the number on the screen or go to jhm.org/partner.
Hello and welcome to the kitchen set here on The Difference. Today, Kendal and I are going to give you a glimpse of some of the things that we do in our house. If you followed us on social media or Instagram, you know that we love the outdoors. You know that we love to hunt. And one of the questions that we often get asked is, what do you do with the deer that you harvest? First and foremost, I want to let individuals know that whenever we have the privilege to harvest an animal, we consider that to be something that God gave us the right to do. In the book of Genesis, it very clearly establishes that He created the earth and He gave us dominion over it, and He gave us all of the things that the earth creates as our sustenance. One of the things that we're interested in is feeding our family healthy sources of protein. And Kendal, one of the things that you know from your time in healthcare and working as a nurse is that what you eat has a lot to do with your health.
Yes, it does. And so venison, when I found out at first, I have to tell you, I was a little skeptical about eating venison. I was like, what? Eating venison? I was like, I've always eaten beef my whole life.
Yeah, but did you think that cows actually volunteered to go to the grocery store?
No, but I just didn't really understand the process. But then once I did some research on the nutritional benefits of eating venison, okay, you can eat 3 ounces of beef and it's like 250 calories. You can eat 3 ounces of venison and it's only 130 calories.
Or you can eat 6 ounces of venison and you still haven't gotten over 3 ounces of beef.
So it's like less calories, less fat, decreased cholesterol. So the health benefits are amazing.
And one of the things that we've been able to do is we work with the local processor here in the San Antonio area, actually in the city of Bernie, Klein's Processing. and they make some wonderful things out of the animals you harvest. We're gonna give you the opportunity to see one of the recipes that you've probably seen me post on my Instagram stories, because I love to cook, and one of the things I love to cook are breakfast tacos, and this is venison pan sausage. And so what we do is we start with just a little bit of oil. And the reason we start with oil is because this meat is actually so lean that if you don't put something in the pan, it will actually stick. So, darling, if you don't mind.
Yes, you want me to start doing this?
Yeah, scoop that out.
This is what we
in
do
there.
at the house. I'm his little shoe chef.
So this is pan sausage here. And you just want to put that in the pan, spread it out, and let it brown. And then this here is chorizo. Now, this is what I call gringo tacos, and this is puro mexicano tacos. This is what you live for.
You're gonna be surprised on how well that's amazing.
This is lean, this is flavorful, and it gives you an opportunity to have a taste of home when it comes to breakfast tacos in my house, and really enjoy something that is healthy for you. So the same as the pan sausage, you put the chorizo in that pan there. Here, let's use this spoon there.
Don't make. We get all of our kids in the kitchen to help us do this. JW is our egg cracker. Hannah is the one that helps with the meat. We get Madison helping to stir. But every Saturday we do one huge skillet of chorizo.
Correct.
And then we do another one of the sausage.
And you get to put them in the fridge, and then you can make tacos all week long. So while your meat's browning, you want to get a bowl and just do a simple egg scramble. You know, if you've been in the kitchen and done breakfast at any point in time, you've actually cracked eggs. You take your eggs, put them in the bowl. We like to mix a little bit of milk in our eggs. And in terms of the pan sausage, this is where we will add a little bit of extra seasoning. If you have a favorite seasoning that you like, salt and pepper are always good. We put them in the eggs and then scramble those up. And then once the meat is completely brown, you take the eggs and pour them evenly over the meat that's fully cooked. You give that the opportunity to mix together, and you put it down to about a medium heat. The reason, look at this, she's two-handing it. I'm proud of you. I've never seen this kind of effort. You're doing great.
Normally I have the kids helping me. I'm like, get over here, you do this.
You put them down to a medium to low heat once you put the eggs in, because if you cook the eggs too fast, they'll brown. And when they brown, it's not necessarily a flavor problem, but it's an appearance problem. You don't want your food to look ugly. You want it to look good when you eat it. And so after you get the meat brown, you add the eggs in, and what you wind up with is a finished product that looks like this for the pan sausage and eggs. And then you have this for the chorizo and eggs. Now, one of the things that we like to do is we serve our pan sausage and eggs in flour tortillas, and we serve our chorizo and egg in corn tortillas. Corn tortillas is a traditional tortilla for, real South Texas Mexican food. And it really goes well with chorizo and eggs, especially when it's a homemade corn tortilla. Packeted corn, not so much, but homemade corn is right on. And if you'd like more information about this breakfast recipe made with venison that we harvested by God's grace, you can go to Matt and Kendal Hagee Facebook, and we'll be glad to share with you more secrets from our kitchen in our home to yours. Kendal and I want to thank Rob Koke and his daughter Danielle for being our guests today and sharing their story of encouragement. We also want each and every one of you to know that there is a hope, and His name is Jesus. He is the difference maker in your life. God bless you. We'll see you soon.